What's up, everybody? Back again for another episode of Digital Banter. I do have to come up with a new intro and kind of hype theme there, James, because I'm starting to struggle with just hearing my own voice
Sounds
over and over again.
fantastic.
Anyway, today we are talking about something that I'm not going to lie, I am very fascinated by, and I am really intrigued to hear how today's episode is going to dive into it. But we're talking about LLMs and SEO, kind of contradictory a little bit. And definitely something that a lot of people are trying to crack the code on. So joining us today is Ishaan Shakunt, founder of Spear Growth and Chosenly. Sean, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. By the way, I love the intro. So the music, the entire theme, it just sets the vibe. So yeah, like please.
He's hyped. Look at him. He's hyped.
Yeah. He's ready to roll. It's all those 12 a.m. demos that he's rolling through right now. Anyway, Sean, one of the things that we like to start off each episode with is a question from James to you. So go ahead, man.
All right. What did you want to be when you grow up, when you were a kid? And how did you end up in B2B? Because nobody wants to be in B2B. Or I don't say nobody wants to be. Nobody wanted to be in B2B. I still, to this day, I mean, I was really thinking about it yesterday, leaving and starting an excavation company because that's what I wanted to do when I was a kid. So where'd you start and how'd you end up where you ended up?
So I had a very good plan when I was a kid, and then I don't know if it was a good plan or not, but I had a plan when I was a kid, and then as I grew up, that it's slowly getting weirder by the day. So when I started it, have you seen the cartoon SWAT Cats by any chance? No one's ever seen it. Anyway, so it was about these two cats that flew around in a plane and shot down monsters. That's what I wanted to do for a living, and then I thought the government will pay me big bucks. So there was an entire plan where I started as a mechanic, and I reached the SWAT cats, like built my own plane, which is going to anyway. I had a plan, right? And then I somehow fell into B2B SaaS marketing. In the middle, I actually was selling virgin mojitos in front of my college campus. So yeah, I took a detour.
I mean, you went engineering to engineering, so I guess there's something to be said for that, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So now we're talking about GTM engineering, the new latest greatest B2B marketing buzzword.
Yeah. And finally enough, the college, I am a CS grad, so I'm a CS engineer on paper. But yeah, that's it. I'm just
building software to marketing for software. I think the journey makes sense. I mean, so far, what did we like? One of our guests was a preacher before he got into B2B SaaS. What else did we have?
Yeah.
Some other good stuff.
I forget what Drew wanted to be, but it was also something that was like completely out. Oh, didn't he want to be like a ping pong player or something like that? He wanted to be a ping pong spy. That's what it was. That was a good one.
Yeah, I don't even know how that unfolded.
Anyway, back to today's topic. So, Sean, one of the through lines I think around this topic is the fact that everybody is starting to see ChatGPT and other LLMs pop up in their attribution reports, and they're trying to crack the code of how can I incorporate LLMs into my marketing strategy. And when we think about that from the perspective of, let's say, like the staunch foundation of SEO, they're completely different. But also, I think the big thing here is like, let's get right out there. Are people actually moving away from Google and the major search engines to ChatGPT?
Yeah, I'll give a short answer to this one. You guys run SEO, like you do SEO. I've been doing SEO for a while. Spear Growth is an agency that does SEO and will continue doing SEO. It's not going away at all. In fact, like when I looked at where is the traffic moving from, like there's obviously a movement from search to search, so Google search to LLM search per se, right? So it's search, but there's also there's also a lot of the queries which are longer, which are more similar to how people talk to their peers or how people would talk to or ask questions in a community. So that's actually moving away from communities as well. So it's not, I don't know how much search is going to get impacted. But right now, I don't think it has. Right. So the biggest impact to search or even traffic or all of that is definitely not LLMs. It's maybe the AI overviews, which is still AI, but not LLMs. But not, yeah, I haven't seen any movement yet. If I'm wrong, I'll get to know a couple of years down the line. But right now, I think so.
Well, it's interesting because you keep seeing all these posts on LinkedIn, the HubSpot traffic tracking, getting like, and it seems to be, I mean, HubSpot is probably the first example that kind of blew up, but it seems like a lot of like publisher content. So not like blogs or like SaaS companies like specifically losing their traffic, but more like third party publishers is where I've, at least just like I've seen a lot of the, and I haven't looked into this at all, but like the people posting the graph of, look at the SEO traffic went from 1 million visits to 10,000. Like, and that's what has me wondering. I mean, I feel like everybody's making the claim that SEO is dead. And, you know, to an extent, I agree that it's not, but it's also a lot harder. I think we can at least agree with that.
Oh yeah, it's harder, I guess, but people are still like, it's been decades still since SEO has been around, but almost no one still does it well. So it's harder for sure, but it's still not so hard that you cannot really make money. It's still in a good place, I say. Like I still get clients all the time, and we just say, "Hey, your competitors are doing this most things wrong, so we just have to be slightly above average to win." And so that's still, I think SEO is still something that people haven't figured out somehow, even after decades. So it's.
You mean just asking ChatGPT how to run a good SEO strategy isn't like the best way to go about it?
Sure, like please, that's exactly what everyone listening, that everyone's my competitors SEO should be doing.
When did you start to see, I mean, you've obviously been in the LLM kind of game of trying to figure things out by also launching Chosenly, like we were talking about before coming on live here just the other day. I'm curious, like what was like the aha moment where you finally started to see like, hey, there is something that's transitioning here, right? And what is like, what, peel back the curtain a little bit and talk to us about what kind of led you to believe there was not just an opportunity, but like uncovering what those LLM opportunities might be.
Yeah. So I'll give you some quick context. So Spear Growth is an agency, we do ads and SEO. Now in that, when this entire LLM, ChatGPT, that entire thing was happening, I went and I spoke with a lot of our SaaS. We work with SaaS companies, so I know a lot of SaaS founders. Spoke with them, spoke with VCs, tried to figure out, hey, should I really care about this thing, or is it just hype? There's been too many huge hype events in the last couple of years, and like, should I really care about this? And the conclusion was I should. So what we did was, in the agency, we actually hired a 4-person dev team, like an entire full-time dev team, to try and automate as much as we could. So this was the third quarter of last year. They came in, started automating a lot of stuff. They were working very closely with our marketing teams, SEO teams. They were already optimizing stuff there, automating a lot of stuff. So okay, that was working. And so we were in a very peculiar space where we had a dev team that's working very closely with an SEO team to do SEO. And then in that timeline, our SEO team has some spare time back in about November, which is very recent. And so because we had we were in this weird place, we just said, hey, could we show up on LLMs? Right? We did a bunch of experiments, took the tech team's help and their understanding of it, did a few experiments, showed up, but then I was sure this is useless. I even after I did it, even after I showed up, I'm like, hey, this has such a low share of search. I had prospects coming to me where I would say, just don't focus on this. This is completely useless. Don't do it. Right. So that's where I was in November. Then in Feb, me and Udayan, who's our head of sales, head of growth, we were on a sales call, and they told us they heard about us from ChatGPT. That was the aha moment where like, hey, this fun thing we did could actually be worth money. And then we built the platform to try and see, okay, this is still maybe a year early, but let's build it out. And then suddenly again, I got lucky again, like where we saw that, hey, like people who are coming, like our prospects were seeing 20% of the pipeline come from LLMs. And that was, I thought it's not going to happen. But now I have 3 companies that I have seen data of where 10, 20, and 30, like not 30, but I've seen up to 20% of the entire quarter's pipeline, B2B SaaS, generate from LLMs, which I just could not have imagined. Even after I had built Chosen Lead, till it was going to go live, I didn't know that was happening, but it apparently is. And then it just blew up. Everyone started talking about it on LinkedIn. Everyone started posting like screenshots and stuff. And like, hey, great, we just happened to have a great platform to work on it. So it was honestly by luck. And we yeah, so the aha moment just came to us. Yeah, just got lucky.
Is that coming from like basically self-reported attribution as far as like how you're getting
so
the
almost
information?
everyone's looking at that UTM last touch tracking.
Yeah.
So because LLMs, if you click on a source, it adds UTM sources. So now you can see it in your Google Analytics, you can see in your CRM. So everyone's seeing that. And those are all the graphs being posted. Some people are saying self-attribution, but those things don't go viral.
But you're having, so I'm sorry, get technical for a second,
Yeah.
but like there's UTMs added for ChatGPT. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's actually like kind of sneaky where like they will add UTM of like ChatGPT or OpenAI as like the source or medium when you're like asking it to like bake in like a link or something like that. And then you have to like catch it. Otherwise you're giving it credit rather than the credit that you want to give it or track it elsewhere. It's like I said, super sneaky.
But yeah, like what else would you, because it's like Google search, right? Google would get credit if it's sending you traffic, and here LLMs are sending you traffic. So I think it's honest. I think it's fair. I actually think it's very underreported because for a lot of these things, right, it's going to say the name of the company in the chat. People don't go to the source, they just copy it, paste it on Google, search it there, and then now you don't even know that it was LLM. So I think it's very underreported just based on the behavior of people. It's most probably much higher than what even it's being shown through sources, but even the sources is quite a bit. So,
I don't want to go like too crazy in depth on this point per se, but when you're talking about like, let's say the 20% of pipe being influenced by LLMs, like those brands that are seeing that drastic of a lift, how unique are they in terms of like the categories that they operate in? Like, is there only like 3 other competitors and therefore you would not be surprised by pipeline being so drastic versus, let's say, a more competitive market?
So it's even in so I'll tell you I'll describe the companies, right? So the one thing that's in common across all of them is that they're all part of companies where their audience had search, like search would work early on. So now their users were searching, now they're searching in a different place. So if SEO is working for you, if Google Ads is working for you, then LLM SEO is a good channel. Otherwise, probably not, is the way I'm describing it right now. How competitive are these places or these industries? So if you are competing against Salesforce, right? Like Salesforce has one module where you're competing against them, you're probably not they would probably get recommended very often, but then there are ways to even beat them. So I think that was the only commonality I found. Early, I thought it would only work with SMBs or companies selling to SMBs. That wasn't the case. I saw one of our prospects is seeing this they sell, their ACV is close to $50,000 a month, which is definitely not like small ticket sizes. Sorry, $50,000 a year, definitely not small ticket sizes. So even in larger ticket size like that, I'm seeing companies where, like 10-20% of the pipelines being driven from there, which is just still absolutely wild to me. Like I don't really understand how that's happening, because I would expect it to be much lower. Like I would still, like based on the share of search, I would still expect it to be much, much lower. But I'm just seeing this data and I'm still trying to figure out like how is this even happening? So some companies are also reporting the conversion rates be much higher, but that's also not very consistent. Like, so half the companies say, hey, my conversion rates from LLMs is higher. The other half, when I actually look at the data, it's actually closer to what you would see on Google Ads,
Mhm.
right? So because on Google Ads, everyone's sort of, and I think my reasoning behind that is on Google Ads, you're focusing on high intent, bottom funnel searches, and on LLMs, if you search for, like, for example, if I write the best blog, and I have written a, by the way, a pretty interesting blog on how to show up on LLMs, but if you ask ChatGPT that, and it references my blog to surface information, it's not going to say, okay, written by Chosenly in its answer. It's going to be in the source, and people might not go to the source and click on it. So LLM traffic, but if you ask for, hey, top tools or top agencies, and it's naming the agency and naming the tool, uh, that's where you might get more clicks from LLMs. So by default, LLM traffic is more bottom funnel, and that's why maybe people are seeing higher quality, higher intent in LLMs versus otherwise. So yeah, like those are some patterns. If Google Ads or SEO would have worked for you, LLM traffic should also work for you. But yeah, I won't make, if it is your first or second channel, don't do it. Yeah, like this definitely, it's still
It's
third channel onwards. Yeah.
it's interesting because like when I do searches like that and I'm just looking for like the top 5 paid media agencies for B2B SaaS, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of just like
It's always us
like,
versus Spear, and we win every day. But that's okay.
no, but to an extent, like I kind of do it as like a joke because like nothing that I would actually trust. I'm just like, I'm curious what would show up here. And I could imagine people at HubSpot and Salesforce and all the other SaaS companies are just like doing the same and not, I don't know, not taking it in a very meaningful way. But at the same time, I feel like search is kind of the same way at this point. So I could see why it is driving as much pipeline as it does.
So there's two types of searches, right? So one I call simple search, which is what we're all doing, like top something something agency, software. All of those are like the same thing that you would do on Google. That habit is just sort of moving to the search platforms. That's what I call simple search. The other are contextual, where people just go ahead and write entire paragraphs because ChatGPT responds like a human being. They start talking to it like a human being, where they just say in one prompt or in follow-ups across all that, hey, I am a CFO, I work in this company, we're based in this, I have a budget of XYZ, I'm looking for a financial reporting software. So those are contextual searches. Now, um, since we run Google Ads, right? So one of the things that I've always thought of is if truly every single person searching for a bottom funnel search was actually in the market looking for something, the conversion rates we would see would not be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 at max 9, 10%, right? Would be much higher.
Right.
That isn't true. But when you're doing something like a contextual search, and then so those searches, my belief, and I don't have a lot of data to prove it yet, I think they would actually convert at a higher rate, but they have higher intent, they know what they're looking for, they have the requirements ready. So I think there the quality of traffic actually is better. And also ChatGPT, when it responds, right, it responds with, hey, here are the sources. Even if it's not accurate, it sounds so freaking confident that, hey, I've scoured the internet and this is the best one for you. People actually believe it. Like when there is sources there, people believe it. So I mean, yeah.
I think so. One thing that I'm curious about, you might, I mean, just take a shot in the dark here of what you believe if you have nothing to back it up with.
Yeah.
But like, so with Google and any other search engine, you have personalization, and that personalization not just affects your results, but obviously impacts rankings and things like that.
Yeah.
When we think about LLMs, right, you can both share learnings that are powering the models, right, across the entire ecosystem, or you can constrain that just to you. And I'm curious, like, does that same personalization happen not just for your account per se, but any learnings that you are empowering the machine to use? And does that then influence others' models and others' outputs?
Others models, I believe it does not. And also ChatGPT very clearly says it does not. So I sort of believe them. is how my answer is literally I believe them. They say they don't, and I believe them.
Sure.
literally my answer. Because if that didn't happen, it might start like I literally I was telling you the stories before we started. I uploaded Chosenly's code base into ChatGPT, and then I asked it to code a bunch of modules for demos. That might just show up when someone searched something, if it was that was used for training. And then if that did happen quite a bit, they would lose way too much in negative press and just
Sure.
companies
Yeah.
not banning them. So yeah, like it just makes business sense also not to use it for training.
Well, I'm also
Well,
thinking about the contextual component that we were just talking about of like, great. So if you've got, this curated list of the top 5, or these things match up because XYZ or what I'm looking for, is that influencing others' results in their own ChatGPT or LLM account based off of any feedback that you're giving? You're giving a plus, a thumbs up to like, yeah, this
I
is a good
believe
result or a
it
good
does.
response.
Yeah, I believe it does not. So the thumbs up and thumbs down, I'm sure that's influencing
Right.
not the so I think it's a lot more technical. For example, it's not like, hey, if these were the top 5
Sure.
and you give it a thumbs up, then that's more likely to show up. It's more like, hey, the way the LLM actually connected the
Yeah.
nodes, and that got reinforced per se, more than these top 5 are good, right? So
Yeah.
it's less of the end result but more of the process.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Again, this is
Yeah.
like some big question that keeps going in my head of
Yeah.
like, when we think about from that perspective of traditional SEO and personalization and now LLMs, like
Yeah.
what crossover does exist or doesn't,
So no, Andy, you can't pay 3,000 people to write Dragon 360 is the best B2B paid marketing agency in
Well, hang on.
ChatGPT, and
I
then
know the sources
ChatGPT
that
will
are
believe
citing
it.
us as in the top 5. So yes, actually you could make that happen and keep
Well,
this up.
I mean, that's like, Sean, you can give your opinion on this, but like the cited source, it seems like a big part of SEO for LLMs is traditional SEO work of like getting yourselves in those cited sources that they're pulling the top 5 or whatever information from.
Yeah, 100%. So I'll tell you like what we have seen. I'll talk about the differences more. So yes, citations work. Yes, citations. So a lot of people talk about citations. When you use web search, it shows sources, which are the citations. So sure, they work. I'll tell you about a few things that people don't usually talk about. Right. So one is, if ChatGPT goes to 10 sources, and I didn't know that until recently, if it goes to 10 sources and then it says, hey, 7 of these are useless, but it got to know that after reading it, and it's only using the last 3 to actually write the answer. In the source, it's only going to mention the 3. It doesn't mention the 7, even though it went to the 7. That's just a fun fact. I don't know what you'll do with it, but hey, that's a fun fact. So the second thing is, there's a few, like I'll give you a few examples of things I've seen, which again, it does not work in SEO, but it works on LLMs. Like there was one company where it like LLMs, the top citation, and one of the things that Chosenly as a tool does, it helps you prioritize which citations to get into. So in that priority list, the top result was this market research company where you can go and you can buy these market research papers of 3 to 5, a couple of grand, right? And then you can say, and so they had a sample section of the report exposed. It went in there and said, hey, this looks like the best researched information about this industry, and it's kind of correct. And then it went in that, read that, and there were a few companies listed. That's what it picked up. It didn't pick up the top 10 listicles. It ignored all of those things, and it said, hey, this is the best document that's the document I like. Which is, I have never seen that. That's one source that's different. So the takeaway from there is, just mention as many stats as you want. That's going to be useful. Mention quotes, mention stats, mention dates, mention research method. Like I'm just quoting from what I'm seeing it's using. So I'm seeing it saying that, hey, this is our method of how we did the research. If you even if you're making a top 10 listicle, instead of just saying, hey, top 10, this is how it looks like, just talk about your method, talk about numbers, talk about all of that stuff. ChatGPT sort of understands that this source is better researched than the others, because it actually reads and understands pages versus just what Google and other search engines were doing.
Yeah, it's not
That's
just looking
one.
at H1, H2 meta
Correct.
title.
Yeah.
It's actually reading the
Yeah.
content.
So another
Google should
very
take some
interesting
notes.
example I saw was there was one exact match domain that showed up, which didn't show up on Google or Bing, and it just felt like early 2012 SEO where you just buy an exact match domain and it just worked. So yeah, I mean ChatGPT does have its own search crawlers.
Yeah.
There are probably, and at least in that one instance, it's probably similar to earlier Google search crawlers. So maybe Black Hat SEO is back, right? But
I mean, let's be honest. I feel like that's really the question that a lot of people are thinking, right? It's like, okay, it's so early on in the SEO game for
yeah,
ChatGPT. Like, what are can we buy a bunch of backlinks and it'll work because
yeah,
like the system isn't very sophisticated. Backlinks is an example. Like,
yeah,
that was more of an SEO thing, but like, what's the backlinks for LLMs, right?
So the most reliable way or the most useful, so that's how I've been thinking about all of this is, hey, how can I get data to get an insight that's very useful? The way I'm defining useful is you can actually take action on it. And if I do take action on it, that's likely to drive revenue. That's how I'm defining useful. We literally had to sit and define what useful means. But anyway, so the way we find useful insights on, hey, where to show up, there's a couple of different approaches. One thing that we've done is we just say, hey, you know what, we're going to take searches that are likely to be happening on LLMs, and then we're going to find all the different variations. We're going to do them multiple times, and we're going to see which sources are being referenced more often. And then we're going to prioritize them based on that and say whatever shows up very, very often, is get referenced very often, it's probably important, definitely show up there. So that's one set of places to show up on. The other interesting one is, so that's from a simple search report. There's a contextual search report as well, where it shows, I've seen things like, for example, I am not a big fan of, I was not a big fan of PR. I would think it's pretty useless, and being very honest, right? But probably shouldn't be saying this out loud because I'm now trying to partner with PR agencies. But I thought it wasn't very useful as a marketing function. But I'm seeing ChatGPT, like for one of our clients, was just referencing PR web. And it's just like these, I know these are paid placements.
Like old school PR web. That's
Yeah. These are very obviously paid. ChatGPT loves it. For some reason, for one more of our clients was referencing Financial Times. For the third one, it's referencing Reuters, and it's also referencing a lot of Wikipedia pages. So it's all like, hey, these are things that I had almost given up on, and now it's all just like coming up in top sources that you should do. So you can also do things like, hey, maybe I need to take PR more seriously now. It's almost like a re-emergence of PR because of this entire new channel that's coming up. And another interesting thing is, like, because we work with B2B SaaS companies, almost all of our clients collect the reviews on G2 and Capterra. Like, those are the two sites.
Yeah.
Now, for one of our clients, everything that it referenced was this company called Select Hub. Again, I hadn't heard of it, but that was the top source for reviews. So they literally went back and said, hey, guys, we love you. You've already given us reviews on G2 and Capterra. Went to the best clients and said, hey, can you please also drop one on PR or on Select Hub, right? Just to sort of see if that works. But those are the kind of experiments you can do, and just how do you prioritize what to go after. So we're just seeing, hey, what is the current behavior? And then seeing, okay, what is the best way to influence it? And that gives you the highest chance of things working out.
interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask directly because I'm sure you probably know the answer. In the agency space, how's it favoring Clutch?
I honestly don't know the answer, because every single one of the companies that has signed up with this is a B2B SaaS company till now. Like
I know the answer.
100%.
I know the answer. It does favor Clutch.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
it favors those marketplaces along with a range of other things, to Ishaan's point, like PR, but more so like thought leadership. and a combination of those kinds of things.
Does
So
it favor
in the
Forrester
agencies,
reports?
It does not favor.
So,
Well, not for
I
us.
haven't seen it. I haven't seen Forrester. I have seen top 10 listicles in the agency space being referenced the most often. When you're talking about, hey, what are the best agencies and all that stuff, it does reference those quite often. Like we get sourced for some of those answers because a lot of other agencies also talk about, hey, how we are one of the best in the B2B SaaS space. And that's the source for its answer. So we show up in the answer as well, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a win.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, like the whole like G2 Capterra and the amount of effort that
Yeah.
goes into that. Like, I feel like that's an interesting piece of information for people to know as they're,
Yeah.
I mean, what does it cost to have a G2 sponsored account these days? 50, 100 grand a year? Like a lot of money.
Much lesser, but yeah, it's still
Yeah. It's a
very
lot.
annoying.
You're thinking of the
Sorry,
intent. You're thinking of the intent signals and everything else.
Yeah, I'm thinking of
Yeah.
the full,
Yeah.
not to
Yeah.
have a profile.
But at the end of the day,
running
what does it
ads
do? It's
through
just
it.
showcasing the need for social proof.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a core component of everything in the marketing world and how you buy, and it just
Yeah.
reiterates the fact that you have to be doing something out there, particularly when it comes to LM.
Yeah, about social proof. I just before this call, like 15 minutes before I joined here, I was speaking with a product marketer, and they were we were discussing this thing like, hey, when you're building websites, how do you think about? So there's a design component, there's the SEO component, there's the dev component, and then there's the product marketing component, right? Now, how does that, when you think about that, right? So I have this entire concept that I call conversion ecosystem, where we think about, hey, what are all the data points that you should think about before, or your customers would want to know before they take a buying decision, which is like, hey, if I am, do you integrate with the same software I use, right? So that could be an important thing to know. Can I afford you? That information, even if you don't put it on the landing page, people want to know before they schedule a call. The same thing is happening on LLMs. So the same behavior, like again to Andy's point, like, hey, is this social proof? There's the same behavior that people would want to know by default, like whether they use LLMs or not. LLMs are just like doing all the research across your web presence, whether it's on your website, whether it's on some other place, and it's just bringing it in one place. So I think even things like product marketing, making sure your brand presence is great, those things are also becoming more and more important now.
Well, to keep building on then, it's like we've always approached organic with like FAQs and answering the questions that people are asking.
Yeah.
I mean, the same holds true, particularly as you build it on sites or answer those questions in your content and how that feeds into the LLM system, because that's what people are inherently trying to figure out. I mean, you gave up a great point. Like, oh, does this tool integrate with XYZ of my tech stack? Like, why am I going to waste my time on Google when I can just go there and hopefully get a trusted response? But
the common objections are a huge piece. I can't tell you how many times I've like gone in to get pricing on products that don't offer pricing, because instead of me, was it trolling Reddit trying to figure out like who's used it before, I'll just ask the question. And then maybe I try to like justify it later, but at least at that point though, that's probably enough for me to decide whether or not I'm going to do a demo call.
So one very interesting thing there is, because now this is important for LLMs, and we built an entire module into Chosenly to focus on this part. So we get things like, hey, what criteria are important? And we're collecting a lot of that from the sales team. So this information existed within the organization. We asked it because we need for LLMs. But even if you never thought of LLM, we should have already optimized for those things, but people just never did. Now, just because they're coming to us for LLM optimization, now they are doing things that they should have done irrespective of whether LLMs existed or not. So and I think it's also directionally more useful. For example, you brought up the pricing page. So some companies cannot put their pricing up. But then one thing, so for one of our clients, what we're building out is a pricing page where they cannot put up the pricing, right? So what they are doing is this saying, they're giving LLMs data to estimate pricing. They're saying things like, we're asking them to say things like, hey, do you typically cost less than 30% of the team you replace? Right? Do people see an ROI within 2 months? Or Like typically, are you 2x cheaper than most of your competitors? Right? So those things you can still say even if you don't want to call out your pricing. You could give ChatGPT a way to estimate it. That's one interesting component. The other is, so let's say you can show your pricing. There's one piece of information that I now realize only because I look at LLMs, but we should have always been doing. For example, like when it's a free trial based product, a lot of companies say that, hey, we start at $100, like a CRM. I'm speaking with a CRM. Their plans start at $100 a month. Now that makes them look more expensive than HubSpot, because HubSpot starts at free and they start at 100.
Yeah.
But they're obviously not more expensive. They're much less expensive. But then even in their own pricing page, they don't call it out that, hey, if you compared something like a comparable plan, we're actually the better fit. They don't ever say it. But that, even if you ignore LLMs, that would be such great information to add to those pages that I'm only realizing, like, I don't know, 6-7 years into the industry, that, I should have probably written that forever. And that's just the most obvious thing to do. But yeah, like that was a great just realization. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to throw a bomb into this entire conversation. How scalable is this? Like, when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
We all operate in B2B. The whole demand
Yeah.
gen, brand marketing, feeds demand capture, things like that. Like, does that same theory and approach exist? Like, does that create scalability with LLM, or does it not?
I don't have a good answer for how scalable it is. I know this though. So what I do know is what the lagging indicators are, leading indicators are, and what the action items are. So those I've been able to clear out very well. That I know that, hey, what actions should show this in the short term and then should show this in the long term. What is the complete market size for any company? That's something I haven't been able to estimate though. So if you ask me that, hey, if I did this, me and everyone else in my, like, if you do it for SEO, search volume,
Right.
you can estimate, you can do something, what the market opportunity is. Here, I don't have a good answer for that. So I don't know, but I do know how to track how things are moving. So if you are deciding that, hey, should I do this or should I not do it?
Yeah.
The best way to decide is that, hey, if you're already seeing some traffic from it, if it's not, you aren't planning to make it a top 2 channels, invest in it or don't. Right? That's basically how I think most decisions should be taken. This is an experimental channel. It's a very interesting experimental channel, but it is an experimental channel. And if you want to be more careful, if there is no search volume on Google for your industry, don't do this, because it's the same people. If they
Right.
weren't searching earlier in one platform, it's not like it's because a new platform exists, they're going to change their behavior. So that's when not to work on it. And otherwise, yeah, like if you have the appetite to experiment, definitely try it out, because some companies, as I said, like, I'm just seeing massive results from it, more than I could ever estimate. Like, there's no way I would have ever called out, you'll see like so much of a pipeline come from this, but some companies are, and I'm just like baffled. Yeah.
The devil's advocate in me wants to argue a little bit of the point of, like, if you don't have search volume for what you offer, because it doesn't answer the scalability question, because it's still not scalable. However, it does make me think, like, Google is not giving you a response, and therefore that might be leading to a lack of search volume. But because of the customized nature of a question being asked in ChatGPT, you might get a better response, and therefore may look to use that as a solution for figuring out what you need, or whatever the case may be, more so than Google.
Well, it's those
Again, like, it's
contextual
still not
searches.
scalable. There's still no scalability there.
The contextual searches are the ones that are hard to scale, and those,
That's what I'm saying.
like you said, those are the ones that are also probably more value, more likely to lead to being customers versus just.
So when you say, like, hey, how can you so for contextual search, I still don't know how much is the total pipeline it can drive, but I know that how much of it, I have very clear leading indicators we built into the product, that that how much of it are you probably capturing. So using that, you could hey, I know I'm probably capturing this percent. and I know this is what I'm getting, so this is probably the overall market size. That you can do, but the one problem with that argument is I don't know how much of simple, how much is that split between
Right.
simple and contextual. So again, you cannot. So I only know that, hey, off simple, this is the total, off contextual, this is the total, this is what you are getting, and this is what, what's the total. But I don't know the split between them, and I don't know the total market size, so it's hard to know that. But if you are seeing any search volume, you can just see, okay, how much of the total, what percentage of total am I getting, and then you can back calculate the market size, and then you can, based on that, decide, hey, should you build an entire program out of it? So that you can do.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
the bottom line in all of this is if you have a strong SEO foundation and you're approaching it with best practices in mind, naturally you are starting to capture an LLM market. It's a matter of starting to figure out where that diversion starts to happen, where you've got your organic side of things. Yeah. Now you need to take it up a notch to hit LLMs in a different way. Would you agree with that, Sean?
Yes, to a very, very large degree. Yeah, because a lot of the sources, if like, for example, there's a couple of things you can do, right? So for simple search, sure, you can show up in the citations. But one of the things that our tool helps you do is sort of figure out where were the citations very vague. And if they were vague, can you just make up your own page so that it becomes the citation, which is very similar to how we thought of, hey, should we create content to rank for this thing in SEO? So that is very similar here, that, hey, like if it is vague, we've again, vague is a word we had to define technically as well, but anyway, yeah. So is
there any
vague? Wow, I never thought we'd have to define.
Is there any favorability though between like brand side content and publisher content?
So if you look at data, I can very easily say this. I have data on this percent comes from this and this person comes from that. The problem with sharing, the reason why I don't want to share it is because it's not the right way to look at it, because like by default there is more publisher content than.
Yeah.
So like I don't like, if I say the percentage, it doesn't mean anything, and it's just going to like mislead everyone. So I have the data, I'm not sharing it on purpose just because I want to just like put, yeah. But if your brand is mentioned, like if someone says Peer Growth, if someone says Chosenly, it definitely goes to Chosenly website. Like I've never seen it not go to the Chosenly website if Chosenly was mentioned, or any other company website if the company was mentioned. So if someone is trying to compare between you and your competitors, it's definitely going to reference your competitors and your websites along with other things. So that's the one pattern. Apart from that, yeah, there are some preferences per industry. Like, hey, like these PR sites are being, like I said, PR sites, review sites, like what are the preferences by industry? Again, I don't know why the preferences exist, but there are different preferences across different industries, and that's what I've seen. So if you know what the preference is, irrespective of what the reason for the preference is, you can just, do more to show up there and things like that. So yeah, that you could.
Cool. All right, Sean. So before we close out today's episode, we're going to do lightning round. It was something we started like 2 weeks ago or 2 episodes around. So I'm going to hit you with 5 fast questions. All right. First one up. What's one SEO myth you wish would finally die?
Oh, I talk about this one quite a bit. Everyone says SEO takes time. It doesn't have to. Just focus on like the most obvious things. Focus on bottom funnel. Focus on the things that are quick wins. Sure, it's probably going. You'll see pipeline impact in like 3 months, right? So it shouldn't take time. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next one up. What? This is a good one. What's a marketing hill that you encountered recently that you were willing to die on?
Oh, so this is actually by a mistake I've made. Okay, so I think I have been half-assing too many things for too long. So if you just did fewer things, and it's the first advice almost everyone gets, if you just do few things really well, it's going to work. So I think that holds true. Every time I've done a LinkedIn post where I just spend 2 days on one post versus I spend 2 days on 7 posts, those two posts bring in more results than those 7. So it's just like, just do less. So yeah, like that's my biggest recent realization where of just like cumulative fuck ups I've made throughout my career.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a reason people give that advice.
What's a tool that you swear by besides your own?
Has to be ChatGPT. I've been coding on it. I've been speaking with it. I've been asking how to get rid of lizards at this, and the next day I'm coding. Like it's like it's the best multi. Like that cannot. And I'm now chosen. It's built on it, so I obviously am making money because of it. So you know.
Well, hang on. Now you opened up the sixth question. Why are you trying to get rid of lizards?
Like my wife hates them. My wife absolutely hates them. If we have time, I'll give you a pepper spray story from today about lizards and me. But anyway, yeah.
Next one. What's a marketing trend everyone's talking about that you secretly think is overhyped?
I think people still keep talking about ABM, and still no one really knows what they mean when, like, what others mean when they say it. Like, just define the damn term. For like, someone just needs to, like, let's all just agree on what it means before we all talk about it. And just like that's the one. Like, no one knows what the other person means when they say ABM. Everyone has a different definition. So yeah, that's
very true.
All right, last one. If you could instantly give every B2B marketer one new skill, what would it be?
I'll repeat my earlier answer. It just has to be this. So I think I was discussing this internally. What is one, like we've been taught about pipelines, we've talked about all of these things, but there should be this like a tipping point theory or something that you need to put in a certain amount of effort into a channel before it really scales up.
Yeah.
I wish I was taught that because I've failed in like outbound so many times, and I've done so many things. I've seen companies just like completely been doing SEO for 2 years, but all they were doing was publishing 2 blogs, get 2 backlinks every month. It's been 2 years and now they're not getting anything, and then they come to us like, if you just put in enough effort for a month, just so yeah, like I wish I knew that. I wish everyone knew that, and this all the entire marketing industry, at least in the B2B space, would be a better place. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Ishaan, thank you so much for joining us today. How can people connect with you and learn more about Spear as well as Chosenly?
So the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I've been talking a lot more about SEO, LLMs, how do you sort of show up on LLMs, ChatGPT. And I've been sharing a lot of the insights that we are finding, as well as the journey of launching the product, including revenue numbers, what's working, everything that and mostly all the mistakes I'm making. I'm sharing all of that stuff. So if you want to follow me in one place, you can just search for me on LinkedIn, which is Ishaan, ISHAAN SHAKUNT on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, like I said, Ishaan, thank you so much for joining us today. I learned a lot. It was a great episode. And I think everybody that listens to this is going to think it's a great episode too. So until next time, guys, we will catch you later. See you in the next episode of Digital Banter. See ya.